I'm Doug Thompson. Welcome to this edition of Legislative Updates with John Barker of the Kansas House of Representatives for the 70th District. Most of us get our information concerning the actions of the Kansas legislature either from some form of media or after the fact, as the legislation either became law or died during the process. Representative John Barker has graciously agreed to take time from his schedule to update pending legislation as the bills are moving through committee to consideration by the House of Representatives. Right after this short break, let's talk with Representative John Barker concerning this week in the Kansas legislature. Welcome to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with, as always, my special guest, John Barker from the legislature. And John has brought in a special guest today, Representative Ron Highland from Wamego. And it's the 51st district.
Yes.
But you said before we started, it's not Area 51.
That's true.
It's a good area. Familiar with Wamego, and it's a beautiful area, and we're delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
And John, you've had a week off. We shot a double show the last time we shot, and then you've had a week off. The legislature's, what is it, on break? Is it like a midterm break?
We've met first adjournment, and that was Sunday morning. It was after midnight, Saturday night, so we adjourned until the 26th, which is a normal process. We have a first adjournment, but I want to thank Ron. I've been trying to get Ron to come out to the show. Ron and I have been friends since we came to the legislature in 2013, and he's chaired in the past, chaired the Educational Committee. Last year he chaired the Rules and Regs. He was my vice chair on Fed and State, and he's the gold standard when it comes to writing briefs
awesome.
For bills. At least that's what I've been told, and I agree. He's been a great vice chair. But we have been busy. We worked the week, like the 3rd through the 6th, every day on the floor, working bills, doing conference committees. Ron and I have been in a number of conference committees. He's my partner on conference committees. We passed out a number of bills. I think Ron carried the conference committee on the amusement rides.
Right.
I carried one on the Israeli boycott and a couple of other ones. But it got interesting Saturday. We came back Saturday trying to get a school finance bill out. Eventually we did. It was passed by 63 votes, the minimum needed. Sent it to the Senate, and they debated a tax bill, and we were getting close to midnight, which would have been the 90th day. Without a resolution creating a veto session at midnight, it would have all went away. Everything that we had pending, we would have just all got up and went home. The Senate sent us a resolution, which is their year to send a resolution to the House. Last year we sent it to them. And they did a little something different. They couldn't get a consensus from their group on a resolution, so they compromised. And so we go back on the 26th. I think we worked for 7 days, because we used an additional day. And then we actually, on the 5th, right, Ron, the 5th?
May the 4th.
May the 4th.
We're done.
But then the 5th is Sine Die, the next day. It's on a Friday.
Okay.
And normally we take a break, and 20 days later we come back for what we call Sine Die, which is the last day, because it gives an opportunity, if the governor vetoes anything during that period of time, we would have an opportunity to override his veto.
Okay.
Now with Sine Die coming at the end of the veto session the next day, we will not have that opportunity. So anything we passed that last week, should the governor choose to veto it, he can't get overridden. It's just a little different. We had to make that decision and adopt their resolution. We actually caucused, and we sent them a resolution, our resolution, which would have made a 20-day break and then Sine Die, but they weren't interested in running ours. It was a little drama.
There was a lot of urgency to it.
A lot of urgency. So at 11:58. The speaker took the chair, and we passed their resolution with about 30 seconds to spare.
Wow, that's close.
Yeah, it was close, and but it was good because you know, we would have lost a lot of pending bills that have not been signed. But the other point is, the House doesn't like to get dictated to by the Senate. So there were some that, and I felt like one of those that I wanted to reject and then put it on them. We should have rejected it earlier, and then they would have been on the clock.
Right.
But we didn't get an opportunity to do that, so we did go back on the 26th. It's been interesting. We did pass a school finance bill. Now we find out, Ron, how much difference?
80 million.
Because they put an amendment on the bill, Clay Arns amendment. Clay Arns is from Belleville. It was not a very well thought out amendment, and it reduced the total package by 80 million. Hopefully, now it's up to the Supreme Court whether they accept it or they close the schools.
Wow, wow. This is interesting. I went up the other day and watched when I was in Topeka on another matter, and the legislature was in session. I went back and forth between the two and caught up with John and visited for a little bit. But it's interesting. We're going to cut away. We're going to take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with John Barker and Ron Highland. And Ron, we were talking about the school finance. How do you feel about the bill? Are you satisfied with it, or is the best the legislature could do under the circumstances, or what do you think?
I voted against it. I think we could have done a lot better. I voted against it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was we're funding some mental health activities, but we're only doing it for very specific school districts. It's a statewide problem, and we need to deal with it on a state level. And number two, you're never supposed to try to hamstring the next legislature coming in. And we've done exactly that. We laid out a 5-year payment plan, a promissory note, that we're going to pay them this much money. Well, if the economy goes down and we can't pay, we'll be right back in court. And that's assuming that judges accept what we've done now. And there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So we'll see.
Do you think that the schools are overfinanced, or you think that you were in a situation that that's what you had to do because there was a need, or what's your feelings in regards to that?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. There are those that feel that they need more money and a lot more money. And there are those of us that say, we think they have enough money, we just need to use that money more productively. And that's part of the problem. Because of the laws, the way they're written, and the Kansas Constitution, all the school districts are independent, and we have no control over. We send them the money, they do whatever they want with it.
How do you address this going into the future? Because this has been going on, I know John has said in the past, this has been going on for many
30 years.
30 years. How do you avoid this keep coming up and draining the finances out of the state budget? Or do you?
Well, it would take a constitutional amendment to change it and change the structure, how it is now. The legislature really has no control, and then when the legislature is filled up with folks that think there needs to be more money, we don't have the votes to stop it.
Right.
So it's out of our control right now.
And I have a different perspective. I actually voted for the bill because one of two things. One, it shows that we attempting to do something, and also because I think we get a better opportunity to get a constitutional amendment, because I think the court will turn us down.
Even at the figures now?
At the figures now,
Yeah.
Because it's not what they wanted. It's less than they wanted. I hope they don't, and then we can work on a long-term solution. However, if we put in this $530 million, they wanted over 600. If they turn this down, then they're the ones who are closing the schools. The legislature, not one legislator in Topeka wants to close schools. Only the court said, we will do that if you don't do what we say. They're an equal branch of government. I give them credit. But we're also an equal branch of government, and we have the responsibility of appropriating money. They don't have that authority. So I'm hopeful that they will accept this, but I have some doubt that they will. And if they do, then they will do if they do what they say they were going to do, close schools, then it's on them. We spend more on per child than any state surrounding us. We have, and of course the survey said we should spend more, and I think we talked about that the last time. Ron knows education probably better than anyone in the legislature because he chaired that committee for a number of years. But there is a lot of inefficiencies. You know, we had one person with the Department of Education that misappropriated. I'm sure, what was that amount? 80 million in the last 4 or 5 years.
A lot of money.
It was a lot of
It
money.
wasn't lost, was it? It was just, what?
He
I mean, it wasn't.
created a waiting. Go ahead, Ron. You
Well, he created a different way of appropriating money for transportation in some of the school districts. How he selected those districts, we still don't know. But they were given millions of dollars and was unaccounted for until the audit showed it up, and now we're having to deal with it.
This $530 million, is this spread out over 5 years?
It is.
Okay, in equal amounts, so 100 and...
No, I think initially
60
it's
years?
larger and then goes down over the 5 years.
Okay.
But Ron's correct. We've tied the future legislators to this, which we can't do legally.
Right.
And next year when the new legislature come in, they will decide what they want to fund. And in year 3 or 4, even though I voted for it, year 3 or 4, we don't have the funds to pay for it.
Will there be more tax increases, or is that too early to tell?
I think we talked about this last week with the Majority Leader of the Senate, Jim Denning, and with Dan Hawkins. There is no desire on any legislator that I won't say the Democrats haven't, but very few of the Republicans want to raise taxes. We raised taxes last year. Yeah. And when we see they spend their money more wisely, then maybe then. What do you think, Ron?
Well, they're betting on the future. They're betting that the economy is going to come up. But
Yeah.
my research into the ag economy, I don't think it's going to happen.
You brought some material in today, Ron, in regards to debt. And I'm looking at, and we'll flash this up on the screen for you so you'll be looking to the same sheet we are. But I'm looking at the KPERS unfunded liability. Explain that to me.
Well, the KPERS system is the state and the employees, they put money into this, what's called the Kansas Public Employees Retirement System, KPERS. And within that, there are 5 groups, but that's too much detail. Totally, right now, the state is $9 billion in the hole. That's what we owe to bring KPERS up to where it should be.
To be fully funded.
To be fully funded. And that affects the bonding rate and everything else when we go as a state to go borrow money. So, and that does not include the total debt for the state.
What is the total debt?
24,748,000,000,000.
So if you add that, if you add the KPERS on into it, it's 33 plus billion.
We're looking at about
Almost
34
billion dollars.
Right.
What's that compute to? That how much do I owe?
Well, if we go look at the census, we're right around 3 million, and I look back in history, and about half of the population pays taxes. They're taxpayers. So if you do the math on that, you as an individual taxpayer would need to write a check for $22,499.19
Okay,
to help pay off the debt.
You know what happens now, Ron? We cut away to break so that I can be able to do some of that. So we'll be right back. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with John Barker and Ron Highland, and we were visiting with Ron, and he was kind enough to put together some figures that all of us can understand. And just before we cut to break, I asked Ron how much I owe for the state for my portion of this debt, and he said $22,500. Well, I'm going to call home and see if Connie can get that rounded up real quick, and we'll try to look for that to go over good. But we're looking at, I see the note on here says trend is worrisome, and you folks will have it up on your screen too, so you're watching the same thing. And I'm reading on here, population increased by 6.5%, and that's from the period of time 2002 through 2014. And yet the number of KPERS employees have increased by 20%.
That's correct.
And so what does that do to the total debt?
Well, the debt increases exponentially. So if that same research showed total debt has increased by 50% during that time period. And it's even more quickly accumulating now, but
Larger debt.
larger debt.
And then of course our borrowing rate goes higher from what you said
Right.
before, so that's another problem. And I see the last note on that first page, it said at this rate won't be enough taxpayers to pay the KPERS fund, pay the debts in the not too distant future.
if that may be right now, actually.
I'm going to ask you when we get to the end of looking at this, what are we going to do? How's this work out? I know it's not all yours, but I mean, I'm real anxious to see what sort of a plan there is to fix this problem. Closer look at the county debts, and now you broke this down, and John, you have the county debt on Dickinson County, and $88 million?
That's the number for Dickinson County.
Well, how much do I owe for this one?
Oh, hell. We'll let you wait a week or two before you pay that one.
Tell me later.
Yeah, but you can see it's divided down. You got 20 mills that go to the state for schools, and we talked about that. If we increased the spending in schools, that would have went up to 38, and then 18 mills.
Wrong page.
18 mills each year after. But as far as Dickinson County, you know, we've got the school districts that have some that have bonds out. I think Abilene has 26 million out. Chapman has almost 7 million out. Rural Vista has 600,000. Harrington School District has 14 million out. So when you add them all together and the other debts, 55% of the debt belongs to the school districts. Our total debt is 88 million. So the school debt is 48 million of that.
So out of that money, that $530 million, does any of that goes to the school district go to service these debts, or are these?
No.
So these are just paid off of taxes, they're separate, they're bonds?
Well, they get money from us. They pay that debt, yes. But I'm saying the state did not accumulate this debt. That was a local option when the voters voted on those bond issues. That's the debt. But yes, what the state does give when they dele out the state school finances, then they use those funds to either pay down the debt or at least pay the service on the debt. Correct, Ron?
Well, in addition to that, depending on the formula, each school district either has 0% that the state pays each year to help them out, depending on the formula. Right. But for example, at Abilene, the state taxpayers, the rest of them, put in another $765,000 to help pay that off, in addition to what they submit a budget to the state, and the state sends the money out to them, and this is in addition to that. So 1, 2, 3 of the school districts, the rest of the taxpayers helped out a little bit.
Right.
Okay, and then going further down on the sheet, they have your county, the Pottawatomie debt.
I just picked one of my 5 counties as a comparison, and their debt is $100 million. And of that, the school district owes $46 million, or 46% of the total debt for the county. And when we get a little further down, we'll talk about how we're paying off those debts, and that's with the property taxes. So we'll get into that a little more. But you see, just like Dickinson County, some of our school districts, the state, the rest of the taxpayers are helping out in addition to the budgeted money we send them.
Okay, so other schools that maybe have built a new school and they're all right, they may not have that property debt, that property tax debt going into there. So, but another school in another county may have it, and so it sort of balances out from there.
Yeah, there's a specialized formula that's used to determine how much they will be helped, essentially.
All right. Now, if I go to that third page of this, that how are we paying for the debts at the local level? That's your caption on that. Walk us through that.
That's called property taxes or mill levy. And if you look at your mill levy sheet from the county clerk, you'll see that what goes to the state is 20 mills goes to the state for schools. And it used to be 35 mills back in the 90s, and then it was dropped to 20. And then an additional 1.5 mills goes for education buildings, state institutional buildings, those kind of things. But all the rest is used to pay off county debt. And so, and if you look down through the school districts there, each of them has a range from 45 mills or 42 up to 72 mills, Harrington being the highest. And the county clerk has to, depending on where your school district is located, they collect those mills for those school districts and send them to them. Right. So you look at your sheet, and that ends up, the county average mill levy is about 142 mills. And the portion of the mill that goes to the school that's the average across the county, is 52 mills. And the local school portion of the county property tax is 42% in Dickinson County. And you look at then, you also, as a side note, I looked into how many government employees are in your county.
For just these counties up here?
Just for
Just for
Dickinson,
Dickinson County.
Just Dickinson County. That's almost 1,600 employees, or almost 25% of the total taxpayers in your county. And
Okay.
I compared that to Pot County, same kind of thing, only theirs a little higher. The county average mill levy is 92.6 mills, and the portion of the school is 45 mills, and about 49% of the total mill levy, or total property taxes, is due to the school. And they have fewer.
Yeah, they only have 11%, 11.9.
11% of the government employees.
All right, we're going to cut away. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back. And you are watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. This will be our final segment of this show, and there's just a wealth of information about what we're all facing for debt and the expenses, and it's tremendous. And you brought in another sheet with us that we'll put up on the screen called Kansas Total Government Employment by County, third quarter of 2017. Can you explain what these folks are looking at right now?
Well, what you're seeing are the numbers for the total government employees for each county, and then you see the percentage of the total employment within the county, and it runs pretty high. And if you look at the yellow circles around those are counties that are over 35%, which is
Of the employees that are government employees.
of the total employment in the county.
Total employment, and these that are in circles are over 35% of the total in that county.
Yes. And look at Logan, that's over 53%.
More than half the people in Logan
Yes.
are working for the government.
Yes. And those are things that, before I make a decision, I like to get all the information I can. So I look at the situation in the state. We did that with the debt. And then I look at the employment, what we have going on in the state. And then I ask myself, how are we going to get along on this?
That's going to be a question we're going to take up after a bit here on another show. But hope you've enjoyed watching Legislative Updates with John Barker and Ron Highland. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hope you have enjoyed this segment of Legislative Updates with John Barker. I'm Doug Thompson with special guest John Barker. Tune in next time for another Legislative Update. Thanks for watching.